Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. My name is Cameron May. It's 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on a Monday morning. That means it's time to get back into our ongoing weekly series of discussions called Getting Started with thinkorswim. Last week, we acquainted ourselves with the trade tab on the thinkorswim platform. Today, we're getting to what might be the most popular set of tools, that's at least my observation, on thinkorswim, and that is known as thinkorswim charts. We're going to be getting into charting. Looking forward to it. Before we can get to that, though, let me say, first of all, hello to everybody. Great to see so many familiar names out there in YouTube land. Hi there, Brian and Bob, Kim, Eva, Chris, everybody else. Thanks for joining us week after week. Always appreciate your attendance and your contributions to these discussions. If you're here for the very first time, I want to welcome you as well. If you'd like to chat in, let me know it's your first time on one of my live streams. I do like to see who my new audience members are. And if you're watching on the YouTube archive after the fact, enjoy the presentation, but be aware that you're invited to join us in the live discussion. It does kick off promptly 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Monday afternoons. And as a final heads up, my very good friend Ken Rose is hanging out in the chats in the live stream, answering any questions that I can't get to. Thanks for being there for me, Ken. But let's get right into it. First thing that we need to do is pause for a moment to consider the risks associated with investing. We need to be aware that the information here is for general informational purposes only, should not be considered an individualized recommendation or endorsement of any particular security, chart pattern, or investment strategy. The paper money software application is for educational purposes only, and investing involves risks, including the loss of principal. All right, so here's where we are in the series. We have 8 lessons that we're working through to get acquainted with the thinkorswim platform. We're on lesson 4 today, which is that charts tab. Very popular, lots to see there. We'll cover as much territory as we can in the time allotted before moving on to lesson 5, the scan tab, next week. So today, our progress is going to be moving through 3 intended bullet points. Number 1, of course, is to explore the thinkorswim platform navigation, just getting around on charts. Then we're going to talk about some of those tools, discuss the trading and investing tools and resources contained within the charts. And then as opportunities present themselves in this webcast series, we will use tools and resources to locate and evaluate example strategy candidates. Probably not going to do much of that today. All right. But if you haven't used thinkorswim before, it is a platform software that can be downloaded. It doesn't cost you anything, and it can be downloaded in 2 places. On Schwab.com, just go to trade, go to platforms, and you'll see it right there. But you can also download it directly from thinkorswim.com. And this can be used for accessing your live accounts. It's a complementary suite of tools that's intended to be a companion for what's already available on Schwab.com to trade and to manage your live accounts. But also, there's a paper money platform, which allows you to experiment in a no-risk environment with new strategies, new tools. It looks just like the real thing, almost exactly the same. Not quite, but almost. And there's really no need to create a username and password for accessing your thinkorswim. You just use your Schwab username and password. Okay, so let's go to the platform. Let's get acquainted with the charts. So here we are on the platform. We've logged into the simulated trading environment. I'm not going to be using this left column at all, so let's just hide that using a little toggle right here, the margin between the left area and the right area. Click on that, and that just hides it. We can always go back and get it right there, okay? Now let's pop up here to charts. And when you first access charts, it's going to be a blank page here. And so what we need to do to get things started, anytime we go to thinkorswim, we're going to, on the charts, we're going to pop up here to the upper left and enter a symbol. If we don't know the symbol, we can start typing in the name. So for example, let's say, how about we use Ford for our example chart today? So I could type in the symbol, which I happen to know is F, or I could just start typing in Ford, and the system will propose for me, oh, is this what you're looking for, Cameron? Oh, there it is. There's Ford Motor Company. In the drop-down menu, I can see the symbol there is F. I can just click on that, and that loads the chart, okay? Now let's get acquainted with the layout of the chart. I'm going to show you some of the most common functions that people ask me about when they're first using thinkorswim, and then we'll go a little bit deeper into some of the other tools that are available. All right, so getting acquainted with the layout, first of all, just to the right of the symbol box, and by the way, if you don't know the symbol, you can type in the symbol. There's also a drop-down menu that can be accessed by clicking on this little down arrow here that gives you access to all sorts of symbols, all symbols, specific symbols to, let's say, indices. if I wanted to find the NASDAQ Composite or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, I could just click on those under the Indices tab, and that would load up that chart. Okay, but as we go across the row to the right, we can see the name of the charted security, in this case Ford Motor Company. We can see what it's currently trading for, $10.31.5. We can see whether it's up or down for the day. In this case, Ford is down about 8.5 cents, or about 0.84% on the trading session. We can see the BA, that stands for bid and ask. So those are the bid and ask prices. We can share our charts. We can actually create a hyperlink that we could then send to maybe a friend who's also a user of thinkorswim. Maybe we'll do that today. But across here are some other functions that we're going to be exploring in today's webcast. All right. Now, down below, on the line just below, we can see, Franklin says, why does my screen look nothing like yours, Franklin? It's quite possible you're using the web version, and I'm using the software that's downloaded at thinkorswim.com or at schwab.com under the Trade tab. So just make sure that we're using the software version, and it'll look very much like this. The color scheme might be a little bit different, but yeah, the navigation is just going to be what I'm explaining today. Okay, so thanks for asking the question. I'm sure that you're not the only one in that boat. All right, but once we've charted a symbol here, we can see right below, we can see first of all the time frame. We see the symbol, time frame. This is a 1 year, 1 day chart. Quote is coming from the New York Stock Exchange. And then I have these letters, DOHLCRY. And what these are doing is it's showing us the details of any date that I happen to be pointing at on my chart. So let's just pick a random date. There we go. Take my hands off the mouse. And if you look up in the upper left-hand corner now, the DOHLCRY, D is the date, obviously. So where I happen to land here is June 1st of 2023. I can see the opening price, which was 1207. The high price for that day was 12.18. The low was 11.84. Close $12.11. So the open, high, low, close. Then we have an R. R is the range of prices for the day. So if we had a low of 11.84 on July 1st and a high of 12.18, well, then we had a range in prices from low to high of 34 cents. So that's what the R means. And then the Y actually has nothing to do with that date. Instead, it's just wherever your cursor happens to currently be pointing on the chart, the Y means the Y, or the vertical price axis over here. So let's come over here to the right margin. You'll notice as I move up and down that axis, I have this little gray box that's following me. So that's just showing me the price at which I'm pointing, which can be very useful. I think our chartists use this all the time, where they point at a price and they'll look over there and say, oh, okay, so maybe I have a price ceiling around 13.24 or a price floor around 13.24. All sorts of potential applications for just knowing where price is at a specific point. And that can be accomplished just by moving your cursor around. And you'll notice that gray box number coincides with, if you look at the Y over next to OHLCR, we have Y. It also says 1414. Just means the Y value on an XY grid. All right. So we're starting to really get acquainted with how the charts are laid out, and you're starting to see some of the functions, and that can already start to allow us to feel a little bit more comfortable. Let's look at a few of the things that people ask me when they're first setting up the charts on their own, like Franklin, using it for the very first time, might want to know, well, Cameron, you're using a 1 year daily chart, as we've already seen over here. How do I change the time frame? Well, right here is a tab with a D in it. It's not always a D. It depends on the time frame that we're using. The D here is telling me these are daily candles that we're seeing on our chart. If I wanted to see, for example, weekly candles, I could click on that D, and it gives me a drop-down menu with some preloaded default time frames. So I can see, let's say, minute-by-minute charts, hour-by-hour charts, yes, daily charts, or even weekly charts. So let's switch this over to a 3-year weekly, and you can see now the tab up here no longer has a D displayed. Instead, it shows WK for week. So that's how quickly we can switch up those time frames, and we can use the defaults, or you can also experiment with customizable timeframes. Very short term, daily, or just flat out customizable right here. I'll let you experiment with those on your own, but I suspect that for now, most of you are going to be using, or I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but a lot of you might like to use these, the defaults, and also we can customize our list of defaults. Okay, so a couple of other functions that are quite commonly requested is when let's switch this back to a 1 year chart, by the way. I'm just going to stick with the favorites. Let's go back to 1 year, 1 day. And let's say that our investor is looking at forward, and maybe they're looking for recent price ceilings, or they're observing trends, and they want to do two things. First of all, maybe they want to draw on the charts. And second of all, maybe they want some extra space on the chart so that their drawings extend beyond the current day and out into the future. Well, addressing that second item first, you'll notice that right now, my candles are running right up against the right margin. There's no extra space out there. So that's what we call, if we had some space, we'd call that the expansion setting. Not a very sophisticated term, but it's appropriate. As we come right down here to the little double-headed arrow, you'll notice as I point at that, it says right expansion settings. And if I click on that, I can change the right expansion settings. Right now, we're seeing 0 extra space or extra bars to the right of my chart. Let's say I wanted 10 extra bars. That would be, in this case, 10 extra days of space to the right of the chart. Let's click apply, and you'll see, hey, there's that extra space there. And those 10 extra days are always remain there. So it never gets crowded up against that right margin again. There's always 10 extra days of space. And let's click OK. So now that's how you make that adjustment. And then to make drawings on the chart, a couple of different ways that we could do that. Right? We can access our drawings through this drop-down menu right up here, where we can find the drawing tools. Or possibly a quicker way to do that is to come down here to this icon in the lower right. And you can see right now I have an active tool that allows me to draw trend lines. You'll see that this is it's a forward sloping trend line as an icon. But that's just telling me that if I wanted to draw a line, I'm already prepared to do that. So that's one of the actions that can be taken for drawings from that menu. You notice there are all sorts of things we can do. We can just have a pointer. We can have horizontal price levels that we can draw. We can draw ovals or rectangles or channels, which are 2 parallel lines. Let me just go ahead and keep it on the trend line tool. And how about we draw a trend line here? Let's say that our chart user notices that the stock, that in this case, Ford, has been running down and then running back up. It's been running down and running back up, but it's been coming up to a series of lower highs. This is a fairly common approach to technical analysis where there's an observation of trend lines. Okay. Jamie says, I don't have the pencil. Well, that just depends on what we've selected here, Jamie. Right now, I have mine selected as a trend line tool. So it's telling me the icon itself is sort of a hint that I'm ready to draw. Had I selected, for example, the arrow, now I don't have a pencil, I have an arrow. Okay. Now here, I kind of cheated. First of all, to draw that line, to draw any line, you just go to where you want to start the line. You click once, move your cursor, and then click again to end the line. Now that's actually going to be the function of almost all of our drawing tools. However you want to draw, let's say we were drawing a rectangle. Well, you go to where you want to start the rectangle, you click once, you move to where you want to end the rectangle, you click again, and that creates that rectangle. But what I mean when I said I cheated, you'll see that I have a dashed thick blue line. And if you're at home following along, you're probably saying, hey, mine is a thin black line. Well, that's because I changed my defaults. Okay, let me edit the properties. What I just did here on my drawing, right click, I'm going to select edit properties. And this allows me to change the style, for example, from a dashed line to a solid line. I can change the width, for example, from 5 out of 5 on a thickness scale to 1 out of 5 on a thickness scale, and I can change the color. And then if I like what I've created, I can just save that as my default. And we could do this with pretty much any tool that we were using. We can change the color scheme, change the thickness, change all of that, save it as a default, click OK. And now you'll notice this is a thin black line, and any line that I draw from here on, I'm still on the rectangle. Let's switch this back to a trend line. Any line that I draw is now going to be a thin black line. It's not what I prefer. So I'm going to right click, edit those properties, and switch them back. Okay, and I'll just save that as my default again. So now I'm going to be drawing thick blue dashed lines again. It's just easier for my audience to see those. So now my chart's all cluttered up. How do I unclutter it all? Well, any drawing, I can right click on that and remove that drawing from the pop-up menu, or I can right click on any drawing and delete or clear the entire drawing set. Now, when we do this, kind of a more dramatic thing to do, so the system is going to ask us, are we sure this is what we want to do? And we just click yes. Okay, so now we know what all the stuff at the top means, except for this part. We know how to adjust our expansion settings, and we can start drawing using the tools, and we're starting to get much more comfortable with the usage of these charts. We even know how to change the time frames. Couple of other things that I want to show you, and then we'll go back up here to the top and start moving through these tabs. But I want to talk about how do we zoom in and out and start to manipulate the chart. So for example, let's just say I wanted a closer look at just these last few weeks here. A couple of ways that I can do that. I can use the little magnifying glass tools down at the bottom. In the right, I can click on the plus sign to zoom in, and you'll notice that's zooming in on that far right. I can zoom out by using the other magnifying glass, or if there's a specific period of time that I wanted to view, let's say I wanted a closer look at maybe the candles back here. Well, in this case, I can do a click and drag over any time frame beyond 5 price bars, I think is the minimum. So I'm going to click, or 5 candles is another way to say that. I'm going to click, and in this case, it's going to be a click and drag. It's different from a drawing. A drawing is 2 separate and distinct clicks. This is going to be a click and drag, and you'll notice as I drag, it's going to be highlighting a period of time. And when I release my click, it's going to zoom in on that period. So let's zoom in. There it is. Now I'm looking at a closer view of that time frame. And then if I wanted a closer view still, I could zoom in again. And just to illustrate something, the last one, you notice I did a click and I dragged to the left. It actually doesn't matter which direction we go. So for example, let's say I wanted to have a look at these candles, even closer still, I can click and drag to the right. And once I get beyond about 5 candles, it's prepared to zoom in. So now I'm going to release that click again. And now I'm really looking closely at these candles. Once I've had my fill of this close-up view, I can just zoom back out. There we go. All right. Now, a final thing that kind of escapes, I think this one escapes attention from time to time, that is resizing the chart. Maybe I'm making a drawing here for any number of reasons. Maybe I'm looking at my downward sloping trend line that I've drawn, and it's running out of space. It's going to run into the bottom of the chart. So I want more space at the bottom. Well, in the right margin, I can click and drag. See what happens as I click and drag that right margin? It compresses or expands the chart. Now this one, once you're done with that compression or expansion, there's an icon right up here at the top that allows you to go back. So I'm going to click on that icon and go back to sort of the auto view. Okay. All right. So we still have a few minutes left in this webcast. So let's explore some of these other functions. Yes, you can share your charts. If you click here and click share, it'll create essentially a URL that you could copy and then send to a friend who maybe uses thinkorswim. Maybe you set up a fancy chart and you want to show it off. That's the way you would do that. You can add technical studies, technical indicators to your chart using this icon or this icon over here. They'll largely accomplish the same things through a different mechanism, but the edit studies icon, if I click on this, it has a whole list of potential technical tools that I could add here. For example, maybe the most commonly used technical indicator in charting is known as a simple moving average. Well, that happens to be one of the hundreds that are available. So I could just start typing in simple, or I could go down in alphabetical order down to simple moving average. I can choose my simple moving average. If I don't know what it is, I can click on the little question mark and it'll tell me what it is. Okay. Let's hide that one. Let's add that to our chart. And it's actually prepared to add a 9-period moving average. Now, this isn't a technical analysis webcast specifically, but thinkorswim by default, so I'm not going to go deeply into what a simple moving average is. It's basically a trend line. But these tools, these indicators are customizable. So I can apply this to my chart, and you can see a little line poking out here, or I can even customize it and then apply it. Let's say I wanted it to be a 50-period moving average. That's maybe blue and thicker. I don't know, lots of customizations that can be made. Well, let's click OK, click Apply, and click OK again. And here we can see that indicator that has now been added to our chart. If I don't want it, I can go back up to the Edit Studies icon and delete it. Let's click Apply, click OK. So yeah, you can add indicators here. You can add indicators here. We understand drawings. We can change our default chart settings using the little gear icon. Maybe I got a little bit ahead of you. If you click on this chart settings icon, this allows you to customize just the basic settings of the chart. So for example, some technicians, they like to see volume below their chart. Maybe they want to see that on all their charts. Well, that typically relates to equities. I can click on the equities tab and show the volume subgraph. Click Apply, and now we have a volume histogram being displayed below. Another common customization is maybe we want to see a little icon to display when the earnings are happening or when dividends are being paid. Those are known generically as corporate actions. It's an action taken by the corporation that might affect the stock price. So I'm going to check the box in that area, click Apply, and click OK. And now you see these icons have been applied. So share, we can add studies, we can change chart settings. Obviously, we could spend 30 minutes exploring each one of those, change our time frames. We can switch up the style of chart. So for example, I'm using a candlestick chart. Maybe I want to change the chart type from a candle to a line chart. All sorts of customizations that can be added through style. But guys, that in a nutshell is a quick introduction to thinkorswim charts. We're obviously going to be exploring this in much greater detail in future webcasts in this series. So when we're done with our 8 lessons, don't be dismayed. Oh no, Cameron, you didn't get to show me everything that we can do on charts. We're going to dedicate full webcasts just to that, exploring the different tabs here. It'll be fun, but we're covering the basics in this introductory set of lessons. Now, it's about time for me to let you loose, but we've accomplished what I set out to do today. I definitely have some recommendations for us from here forward, though. But as of now, we've explored the thinkorswim platform navigation. We've discussed trading and investing tools and resources that are there. But I do have some suggestions for you if you're enjoying these webcasts that we do. First of all, make sure that you're familiar with where to go to find our webcast series. So you can find those at schwab.com/coaching. Here's a calendar of the week's events, and we have 7 or 8 webcasts on a range of topics: technical analysis, trading, investing, every day of the week. As long as the markets are open, you can find upcoming events. You can also find archives for previous events, and that's important. All right? Hey, thank you, Bob. Another thing that I would suggest that you do is if you enjoy my webcasts and you want to connect with me in between these webcasts, best place to do that is on X. That's, formerly known as Twitter. Just find me on X. There's my handle, at Cameron May CS. Just make sure that you're following me, and then you can just get an update on what I'm up to. For example, you can see a poll that I have running right now just to get my followers' feel for what they think is going to be happening with GDP later this week. That's interesting. See, what do you think? Looks like the majority right now think that we're going to be seeing lower GDP than expected. Is that what you're expecting? I'd like to see your input on that. In any case, everybody, time for me to let you go. Thank you for giving me your time today. Next week, we'll be moving on to the scan function of thinkorswim, understanding how to search for stocks that have the characteristics that are interesting to the trader or investor. So looking forward to that. I will see you next week, everybody. Liz Ann Live is up next. Go enjoy that. She always has great observations. You know that. I don't need to tell you that. But as you go, just remember that risk is real. We did use real examples in today's discussion. It's not a recommendation or endorsement of the securities or strategies discussed. Make sure that you're subscribed to the Trader Talks webcast from Schwab Coaching Channel. Great place to access the archives as well. But I'll see you next week. I'll also look for you on X. But hey, whenever I see you again, until that moment arrives, I want to wish the very best of luck. Happy investing. Bye-bye.